All right, hello and welcome to your full body yin. We're really going to be focusing on releasing areas that tend to hold a lot of tension. One of the first regions we're going to start on is the upper body, specifically the chest and upper back. Now, I'm going to cue you to use a block and a big foam roller to support the upper body. If you don't have a long enough foam roller to actually hold your upper body, maybe take a blanket and roll it up like a burrito, and you won't need the yoga block. You'll just lay on the floor with the blanket. The blanket will run along your spine, so it'll be a nice long roll of blanket. If you have a long enough foam roller, though, we're going to place a block at the head of our space, and then the foam roller is going to be kind of leveled on it, so it's at more of an incline. And whether you do the foam roller version or the blanket version, what we're wanting to find here is an opening through the chest. So whether you have the rolled blanket flat onto your floor or this foam roller, we're going to lay the spine around it and allow the chest to fall on either side. So if you have the foam roller, go ahead and pull the foam roller so it's right up against your tailbone. Same thing with your blanket. And then slowly start to unravel your back onto your prop. Now, if the foam roller is a little too high or feels uncomfortable, always know you can come to that blanket rolled variation. And then I'm going to invite you to let your arms just kind of melt down towards the floor. And let either the rolled blanket on your spine between the shoulder blades or this foam roller act as an extension to open through the chest. And just let your backside body be really heavy, really grounded. And your legs can be however, if it makes more sense for them to be out long or to crisscross or butterfly them, bottom of the feet together. But for this first pose, we're really trying to open the upper body, specifically countering our typical posture throughout the day, at the desk, on our phones. We kind of hunch that upper back. And once you feel settled in your yin shape, I invite you to start to notice your breath. Nice deep inhales and exhales. And with every inhale, noticing just liveliness and energy in the body. And as you exhale, this sense of softening and surrendering, melting. And then bring some awareness to the jaw. Notice if there's tension that we can let go. Bringing awareness to the shoulders and the neck. See if you can't let that soften. And bringing awareness to the eyes and the brows. Letting go of tension in the upper face as well. And as you stay here in this stillness, notice how gravity is helping to open up this chest. As the back of the body starts to pull together after being in that extended stretch from posture. And the chest in that typical concave position is now allowed to open up. Notice how that feels in your body. we'll stay here for about just another minute. Again, letting go of tension and feeling your body softening. And then depending on whatever prop you're using, if you had the rolled blanket, you can just gently roll off to one side. If you're using the block and the foam roller, it might be a little bit more precarious. So as you roll onto one side, I'm just going to invite you to kind of use your forearm to assist you off of your elevated prop. And then feel free to come to lay down onto your side and take a moment here. And then just gently press yourself up into a seated posture. You can set your foam roller off to the side if you were using it. And keep one of your blocks handy and grab your myofascial release balls. Now, if you don't have specific myofascial release balls, tennis or lacrosse balls also work really well. And grab a blanket. So the blanket, we're going to fold it so it's roughly the size of a yoga block. So trying to just use the blanket more like a pillow. So I have a pretty thick fold, maybe 4 inches thick, and then it's just a little rectangle shape looking kind of like a yoga block. Now we're going to start releasing through the cervical spine, so the neck and then into the traps, and where the traps connect the back and the neck and the shoulders together. So opening up just one flap of your blanket, you're going to slide the 2 balls in, and when you do that, they'll be right next to each other side by side. So when you come to lay down on it, they're going to really just be wrapping around the cervical spine, and we're going to move down the neck towards the traps eventually. So the blanket is nice just because it helps hold the balls in place. If that doesn't work for you, you can also put the balls into a sock and then tie it so the balls will stay in place, whichever makes the most sense for you and your space. But we're going to want to start at the top. So as you come to lay down, I want you to place the balls right at the base of the skull, so right at the occiput. So if you kind of palpate along the back of your head, you'll feel this kind of U shape or rounded shape, the base of the skull. So they're not on the neck yet, but really right at the base of the skull. And that's where we're going to lay the head onto the balls. So once you have an idea of where you'd like to place it, go ahead and start to lay down, and then you can maneuver your blanket so it's right in place once you come down. Let your chin slightly tuck towards your chest, and then let your head just be really heavy. Now, we're not going to want to take the head off the balls. There's not going to be a whole lot of movement, but if it feels nice, you might just gently nod the head no side to side. So you just feel more weight leaning into one ball versus the other at a time. But let this be really mellow, really relaxed, the head really heavy. And once you feel okay with everything, come back to your breath. This is also a really nice therapeutic technique if you ever have a tension headache or migraines, to help release some of the pressure in the head. Again, let your upper body be really heavy. Notice if there's maybe some tension in the shoulders you can let go of. And then if you were gently rocking the head, I invite you to come back into stillness. Now we're going to move the balls down just maybe 1/4 of an inch. It's not much. So you can either reach back and pull the blanket down a little bit, or you can kind of just scooch up a little bit. So now we're right beneath the base of the skull, moving towards the neck. And again, let the neck and head and shoulders get really heavy. And if it's helpful, again, maybe you just take that gentle nod no. side to side, but just enough to feel the weight shift from one side to the other. We're not lifting up the head or turning it all the way. It's a really small, relaxed movement. If you feel safe in your space, maybe even closing the eyes or downcasting them, and noticing the sensation as we begin our journey down the cervical spine. How the neck feels. It can get really tight even if we just sleep funny. But if we are constantly stressed or feeling tense, this is an area that holds a lot of that for us. Just trying to invite that to let go. And again, if you are moving, coming back to stillness. And now we're just going to move again so the balls are more in the middle of the neck. Might almost feel now like the chin is lifted away from the chest and maybe the back of the head is almost cascading down. And if it feels good to move side to side again, that's always an option. I personally like to just stay still in this one and feel the compression, the massage balls on either side of the cervical spine, and just focus on a relaxing breath. And again, if you were inviting in gentle movement, allowing the body to come back into stillness. And we're going to move down the neck a little bit more by moving our physical bodies up. So we're moving closer and closer to where the neck and the shoulders meet. The head will almost feel like it's cascading or water falling back behind you now. And we're not quite at the shoulders, we're just right above where the shoulders and the neck come together. Let your head be really heavy, cascading back. And again, if it feels good to invite in that gentle movement, feel free. Or just enjoy the stillness. And then we're going to find one more spot, and this will be right where the shoulders and the neck meet. So again, just moving up. So now we're right at the kind of the apex of the shoulders and the base of the neck. And for this one, if it feels good to have some movement, it might feel nice to just sweep your arms overhead and then gently down by your sides. Or again, something that can be really nice depending on how you feel is just staying still. Sometimes movement feels really nice, especially if we're feeling anxious or we just feel like we need to move a little. And other times it's really nice just to stay in the stillness. So listen to your body and adjust accordingly. And take one more deep breath here. Then as lazily and easily as you can, reach back and slide the blanket out from underneath of you and let your head just come flat onto the floor. And notice that sensation in the neck. Perhaps it's a temperature difference. Maybe it's a tingly sensation as the blood and the lymphatics rush back in to gather waste and remove it, to rehydrate the tissues, to nourish our cervical spine. And whenever you're ready, roll onto one side and then gently press yourself up to have a seat. We're going to continue our journey down the spine, but again, we're going to use our blanket and our balls for our setup. So go ahead and remove the balls from your blanket. And we're going to unfold the blanket a couple times. So now the blanket will be roughly the length of your spine, all the way down to your hips. Now, once the balls are in place, we'll be physically moving the body over the balls. So I'm going to invite you to start at the bottom end of your blanket, and we'll slowly work our way up. So we're going to start at the top of the spine and work our way down towards the lumbar region. So again, the balls being closer to the first layer of fabric will give you more feedback. But if it feels like too much, you can always go into deeper layers of the fabric, so it won't be as intense. But again, the balls will be side by side, and then just place them either in the first flap or the second flap of fabric. And again, we're placing the balls right at the bottom, and we'll slowly just move our bodies up. So by the time we get to our lumbar spine, your head will be towards the top end of your blanket. Have your block handy because it might be nice to bring with you along your journey, but we're going to want to place the balls now right at the top of the shoulder. So where we just were at the base of the neck, we're going to be just right underneath of that, I should say. So go ahead and start to lower yourself down, and you may have to kind of wiggle the first time to kind of find the place. The balls generally, because of their size, will allow the spine just to fall right in the middle, so it should be okay. But if something doesn't feel right, feel free to adjust accordingly. Now, if this feels like enough to release the traps, I invite you to stay exactly as you are. If you're not getting a whole lot of feedback, it might be nice to take your block on its lowest setting and slide it underneath your pelvis. And that'll just put a little bit more body weight cascading into the balls on the traps, which might help release a little bit more. And if you still don't have a lot of feedback, another option could be to also take the arms overhead and let them just rest onto the floor. Or again, if you really want to move, you can always sweep the arms down by your hips and overhead and just keep flowing that movement. But what we really want to find in our practice today is the sense of releasing tight or stressed areas in the body. So if that's movement, feel free to move. And if it's staying still, invite that into your practice. You always have the breath to come back to. We're going to journey down the spine in the thoracic and lumbar regions, just like we did in the cervical. It'll be small little steps at a time. So notice where the balls are now along your spine. If you had the block underneath your pelvis, I'm going to invite you to remove that first. And then we're going to come up just a half an inch. So the balls are going to be kind of right in between the upper portions of the shoulder blades. So not right in between the middle of the shoulder blades, but still somewhere between the apex of the shoulders and where the shoulder blades start to come together. And it doesn't have to be overly specific, so don't worry if you're a little lower or a little higher. Again, this may be enough, or you may like that block placed back underneath your pelvis. So maybe try both, see what feels more nourishing to your body. And then again, maybe gentle movement, or allow yourself to stay still. And then if you added the block underneath your pelvis, once again, I'm going to invite you to remove that first. And we're going to move up again about another half inch. So picking up the body and starting to slide yourself up. The balls will now be right in between the mid shoulder blade. So it'll kind of feel like your chest is extending towards the sky. The shoulders are cascading downwards, and the rib cage is cascading the opposite direction down. So you feel this lift through the chest. If you really want movement here, it can be maybe nice to cross the arms, like giving yourself a hug, extending them out to the side, and then switching which arm on top, which arm on bottom. Or maybe you just allow yourself to rest in stillness. And keep taking those nice, deep, relaxing breaths. And if you were moving the arms, I invite you to bring them back into stillness. And we're going to move the body up again. And this time the balls will be right underneath the shoulder blades. So for wear sports bras, it'll be right at the base of that sports bra. It's right underneath the scapula and where the ribs start to connect there. So right in that mid-thoracic region. And now it might feel more like an extension through the ribs and maybe a deeper arch in the low back. The shoulder blades might feel more connected with the floor now than before. And arm movement might not affect so much here, but if you do still want to move the arms, feel free to take that hugging variation. Notice if there's tension in the jaw or the neck that we're bringing in that we can let go. And once again, we're going to move, and now we're going to be right underneath the rib cage. So as you pick yourself up and start to move up, aim to be right underneath the ribs, kind of in that kidney region. Moving closer and closer to the lumbar spine. And we're going to move down in two more different spots. So the next spot will be in the upper lumbar region. So again, just moving up maybe an inch. And hopefully with the blanket assisting us, the balls have stayed in place along the spine. So just releasing these erectors that attach our hip to our neck. can get really tight and hold a lot of tension and cause issues along the spine. And then we'll find one more place in the low back, and feel free to go anywhere in the lumbar region or closer to being in the hips if that feels better in your body this day and what you might need. Anywhere beneath where you just were, that might feel really helpful. I like the deep curve of the lumbar spine, but maybe your hips need a little bit more focus. That was a big focus of our class last week, so if that helps, maybe check that one out again. And take another deep breath here. And then slowly roll off onto one side and press yourself up. You can remove the balls from your blanket and set them off to the side. We're done with those today. Go ahead and take this extended fold of a blanket and fold it up and set it off to the side for just a moment as we get set up into our next posture. So I'm going to invite you to set up for a really restorative, leisurely child's pose. So take your two blocks. We'll set them on their mid setting, maybe just about 6 to 8 inches apart. And then take your bolster or your cushion or your foam pillow, whatever you have at home, and you're going to place that right on top of the two blocks. Now, if you have two blankets, it might be nice to have one on top of the heels to allow the hips to rest. I invite us to do this face down. So the folded blanket is going to be toward, so your forehead will be resting on that and your nose won't be compressed into the pillow because of the lift through the blanket. Doesn't feel comfortable in your body, it might be nice to have an extra blanket here, which will kind of close the gap between the spaces. But once everything feels pretty okay, and if the bolster is too high, I'll also recommend maybe just turning your blocks on a lower setting. So just kind of play around with the height there. But as you start to come down, move the blanket for the forehead so that it catches the eyebrow line. So then your nose isn't feeling compressed into your pillow. And take your arms in the space between the blocks like you're hugging your pillow. And if anything doesn't feel comfortable, you can always turn onto one cheek if that feels more comfortable for you rather than being face down. You can eliminate or add in more props. Let this be really personal for your practice. Let the neck be soft, shoulders relax. So notice if there's tension, let them fall towards the props. To your breath. And take another deep breath here. And slowly walk your hands out to frame your props and use your arms to push the upper body up and back. And then take whatever movement might feel really nice. It might feel nice to come off the knees and extend the legs and maybe just kind of rock them side to side. But whatever movement, maybe taking a down dog or whatever feels really good and authentic in your body. And we're gonna finish our practice today with restorative twists. So I'll invite you to keep your bolster, but you can set your lowest block off to the side. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can take both blocks out completely, but we'll bring the legs into some variation of deer pose. So one leg slightly forward with the thigh kind of running parallel-ish with your bolster and the other leg tucked back. If any of that doesn't feel good, you can adjust the legs however does feel good. You'll frame the bolster with the hands lengthened through the spine and come to lay down. Now, the more elevated the prop is, the more restorative, but if anything doesn't feel good, you can remove a block or a blanket or whatever helps you to relax more. Once you have your twist, I invite you to walk the arms out from underneath of you so you're not pushing into the arms, but rather the bolster is supporting and holding you in this twist. And then if it does help, you can always twist through the cervical spine by looking back. But notice that might not be very comfortable, so it might help to keep looking the same direction that your knees are pointing. But feel free to make adjustments. Listen to your body and add or take away as needed. And let your body be really heavy and supported by your props. Take another deep breath here. And as lazily as you can, we're just going to switch sides. So feel free to walk the hands in, press yourself up, and roll onto the other side. I'm going to move my props just so I don't have my back to you for that extended period of time, but you can just gently roll over in your practice, in your space, onto that other side. Take another deep breath here. And then again, walk your hands underneath the body. Use the hands to press you up. And we're going to come into one final pose. If you would opt for a more traditional Shavasana, feel free to take that variation. But I'd like to finish opening the chest in a similar manner we began. So we're going to keep our bolster now. If it does make more sense for your body to slide a block underneath the head portion, that might make it feel more accessible. But we'll turn away from the bolster. Have a couple inches of space between your tailbone and the bolster, so make sure it's not pushed right up against that. And then slowly, just like we did earlier, either on the blanket or the foam roller, start to unravel your spine. Now, the blanket behind you, you can roll it up or fold it, let it grab the back of the head. But instead of the arms being extended, hopefully there's a little bit of space above our heads on this bolster. We can let the arms rest overhead or grab opposite wrist or opposite elbows. Again, finding this expansiveness through the chest and the shoulders and a little bit more engagement through the back body. When we have posture of rounding the upper back or sitting at our desks, the upper back is in a constant stretch or extended position, which can cause a lot of pain in the upper back, specifically around the shoulder blades or in between them. And then the chest is overly tight, constantly being in that concave position. Taking a few moments throughout the day to kind of counter that, to open the chest and engage the back, can be really beneficial to our bodies. But if the arms overhead are really distracting or you feel like it's inviting tension back into the body, please feel free to let them rest by your side. Only be here for a few more moments, just relaxing through the breath. Relaxing through the body. And we'll be here for about one more minute. So just feel your body melting and relaxing, letting go of tension within the tissues, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the brow, relaxing the neck and the shoulders, feeling lively and stretched through the front body, grounded and engaged through the back body. Take 2 more deep breaths here. And without changing anything else, just gently release your arms from their overhead position to resting out towards the sides or down towards the hips. And we'll take 3 deep cleansing breaths here. So inhale through the nose, gather up oxygen and energy into the body. Hold for a moment at the top of your inhale. Now with an audible exhale, let it go through the mouth. Let's do that 2 more times. Nice deep inhale, energizing the body. Hold for a moment at the top. Audible exhale, soften the body. Last breath, take a nice deep inhale. Hold for just a moment at the top. And then let everything go, sigh it out. However you would like to transition to seated, you can roll onto one side, or I like to walk my hands next to my hips, tuck my chin to my chest, and slowly roll up off my prop to have a seat, but whatever makes most sense for you. Once you've come off your props, take a couple shoulder rolls, maybe a couple gentle half circles through the neck. Notice how your body feels now versus when you first arrived on your mat. Hopefully, the chest feels more open, more invigorated, and more awareness through the back and the spine region as well. When you're ready, bring your hands to your heart. I want to thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Until next time, be well.